something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there.
So, it's been a while now since we discussed Rising Storm 2 Vietnam, the upcoming game from Tripwire Interactive and Antimatter Studios. The game has been in development for a while now, and from the latest information and trailer that we've got to have a look at, it looks like the game is really starting to come together. PC Gamer recently went hands-on with the game and took a lot of information away, and we're going to be discussing that along with looking at some new gameplay as well. So first up, let's talk about the imbalance of the game. The developers at Antimatter have already stated that the game will feature an asymmetrical system. That means the Vietnamese and American factions won't feature parity in weapons and gadgets, and instead, they focused on trying to tell the stories of the Vietnam battles in an authentic way. Authentic being the key word here, however, not realistic. The game will allow the two factions to fight against each other using authentic tactics and equipment, but inject fun into that at the same time. No one wants to play a boring game, and so that balance between authentic combat and a sense of fun is something that can be sometimes very hard to achieve. The example used is the helicopters, which of course the Americans used heavily during the Vietnam War. Now the Viet Cong didn't really use them all that much. They did use them, but only in certain battles. And so to mimic this in the game, the maps that involve the use of helicopters, it's only the Americans that can use them by spawning at a nearby airfield close to the battle that's going on. They can then fly the choppers in and start to wreak havoc on the Vietnamese. This kind of asymmetrical gameplay can be really exciting, but how the hell do you balance a high-tech American chopper against guerrilla warfare style tactics of the Vietnamese forces? Well, the choppers themselves are extremely loud, and you can hear them coming an absolute mile off, letting the Vietnamese perhaps set up an RPG point and fire rockets as the heli flies over. Also, the American troops all funnel onto the map via one direction, whereas the Vietnamese can use a network of tunnels to penetrate the map and appear all over it. And that makes it much harder for the Americans to simply push in and start dominating. The Vietnamese can also hide from the American choppers and infantry by crouching or going prone and simply just staying still. Not only that, but because some of the Americans need to spawn in as pilots and passengers in the choppers, that leaves less soldiers on the ground fighting for them, giving the Vietnamese more men to dominate the map with. All these little advantages for the Vietnamese will equal the extreme power the Americans possess with the choppers, and that creates a balance in the gameplay. It's just not an exact balance. It's not exactly the same weaponry and gadgets opposing one another. We'll have to see how this plays out as the game comes into the beta stage, but right now, it does sound like a very interesting concept. Next, I want to talk about that asymmetry again just a little bit, but how that ties in with a brand new game mode that's coming to the Rising Storm series. It's called Supremacy, and at a high level, it's all about having domination of the map that you're playing on. As the round starts, you need to secure your home base, and then move into the map to capture all of the other points that are up for grabs. Now, people who've played Battlefield might recognise this format as similar to Conquest. Where the mode differs though, is how the scoring of the mode and how the capture points are represented on the map. The scoring is not about depleting enemy numbers by killing them. It's more of a tug-of-war style system. A bar will be put on the screen and that represents the current situation and score. The bar will be made up of two colours, one for the Vietnamese and one for the Americans. Every few seconds that bar is updated, pushing it one way or the other, depending on how many locations are held by each faction. This could mean the bar is pushed further one way than the other, but it also allows for some big comeback plays to have an effect on the score where you could only be a few points from losing, but then taking back all of the capture zones will push the bar back up in your favour. To add further depth to the game mode, each capture point actually represents a large zone on the map, which borders another zone, and teams can only earn points from the zones that they have control of if it's connected to their home base. The incentive here being that if you can spread out players across all of the zones and keep the link back to your home base intact, you'll score more points than the other team. If the enemy team breaks the link to your base by taking the capture zone in between your base and the rest of the map that you maybe have control of, you won't score any points at all until you reinstate that link. This sounds really cool. There's an emphasis on defending control zones in Supremacy as much as there is attacking them, and that can be a really difficult emphasis to achieve and get players to act on. Players just simply want to attack, and putting the pressure on defense may be just as rewarding here. I guess we'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but for anybody who's played Battlefield in the past, this is almost like an extension of the Conquest mode, where you really do have to focus on attack and defense all of the time. Beyond this new gameplay information though, Antimatter have released some new footage of some weapons coming to the game recently when they attended the PAX West convention. I don't have full information as to whether this is a full list of weapons coming to the game or not. For example, in this footage there is only one sidearm, so I'm pretty sure this isn't a full list, but we'll go over what footage we've got anyway. I'll be covering this in more depth in the future in another video once we do have a full list. First of all, we've got the Type 56. Now this is a Chinese copy of the infamous Soviet AK-47 and was used heavily by the Vietnam forces. Next we've got the M16A1, perhaps the most well-known American rifle to ever be produced. We've got the MOSIN NAGANT, which is a bolt-action rifle, and in this second clip, the weapon sounds like it's suppressed. Then we have the M14 rifle with a bayonet being attached to it. This weapon was superseded by the M16 during the Vietnam War, but it still saw a very big presence. Next is the SKS-45 carbine, another Soviet weapon used by the Vietnamese heavily during the war. The iconic 1911 pistol, this makes me very happy. We see the A1 variant here coming into the game. Then we've got the M3A1 grease gun, and this was intended to replace the Thompson series of submachine guns in World War II, but it actually saw more action after that war due to various production issues. The MAT 49 SMG is a French-produced weapon, and it was converted to use a different round by the Vietnamese forces, and those rounds were more readily available from their Soviet allies. The ITHACA M37 shotgun, or what you might know as the Stakeout, makes an appearance too. The Baikal shotgun is here as well, along with the Pig, the M60 GPMG, and the RPD LMG as well. And that makes up the American and Vietnamese options for the machine guns they can use. Next, we probably have my personal favourite, the M40 sniper rifle, and that's alongside the DRAGUNOV SVD and the MN9130, and the MN stands for MOSIN NAGANT. Now this is a scoped variant of the MOSIN, so it looks like we'll get a rifle variant and a scoped variant to use in this game. That's followed by weapons that we already know are coming, the M9 flamethrower for the American faction, and the RPG for the Vietnamese, along with the M79 grenade launcher. Lots of weapons for us to play with then, all linked to different classes that you can spawn in as. As I said, I'm not confident this is a final list, but when we get one, I'll be sure to make a video listing all of them, showing them off, and giving a little bit of history about each weapon and how they played out during the Vietnam War. So Rising Storm 2 seems to be shaping up as quite the shooter. From the information that we've been provided, it really does feel like Antimatter, the developers behind this game, are following their tried and tested formula from games gone past, where they strive to create a balance out of imbalance, all the while keeping the game authentic and as fun as possible. That's a very hard note to strike, but so far, it's keeping me very excited for this game. The developers are aiming for a 2017 release. Nothing has been set in stone yet, but when it is, you guys know I'll be here letting you know. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, but until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.